Today's show is brought to you by Audible. Audible is offering our listeners a free audiobook with a 30-day trial membership. Just go to audibletrial.com/beat and browse an unmatched selection of audio programs. Download a title free and start listening. It's that easy. Go to audibletrial.com/BEAT.
And I see the rabbit.
I'm just searching for equality, looking for some reason, no violence, no apologies. But I do want opportunity, hard work, it ain't new to me.
Hey everybody, it's your girl Rach Da Gem, back for another episode of Melanin Blvd. Welcome back to the Boulevard and welcome, Jacent, to the Boulevard. Your first time. How are you doing today?
I'm well. Honestly, it's my first time recording as a guest for a podcast,
wow.
This is exciting for me.
How fun. Well, I'm glad your first time was on Melanin Blvd.
Yes.
So that's awesome. So Jacent is a therapist and a podcast host also.
Yes.
Here in Las Vegas.
I just started my podcast December, so I'm fresh.
Okay.
I'm still trying to figure things out and pick up as much as I can, but it's been fun. It's been a nice creative outlet as well as just providing information. Nice.
So we're going to get into what the podcast is all about. But first, let's just do a recap about the week. What day is it? It's Friday. So it feels like this is kind of like a never-ending week. I don't know.
Oh, my goodness.
This week has been kind of long to me.
It's felt like day 67 of this week.
Yeah, it's been long for some crazy reason. Of course, the coronavirus, everybody's talking about it. They just added Nevada to like the national state of emergency, whatever they say. So Nevada is officially corona'd. I don't know.
The struggle. Yeah, it's crazy because I was actually supposed to be leaving the country next week. Oh. And my cousin was supposed to leave on Wednesday. So while she was in the air, my aunt from Uganda sent me the health ministry of Uganda's newest update, and they had added the US to if you come here you're gonna get quarantined. So she was in the air and I was like, I hope she hasn't left the country yet because I don't know what that looks like. So she actually stopped in Chicago and I was like, hey, you probably want to turn around. you know, maybe you don't want to go. And she's like, well, maybe I'll go. And I was like, girl, I don't know, haven't you seen Handmaid's Tale? You just don't know how things develop so quickly. And then later that day, then that's when it came out that there was restriction from Europe to the States, and she was supposed to go to Brussels and have a layover there. So, you just, I don't know if it's take caution or.
So when they quarantine you, so you just land and they're like, come with us. How does that work?
I don't want to find out.
That's pretty scary.
I don't want to find out. I've seen too many movies.
Right. I love Handmaid's Tale, by the way. That's my favorite show. Hulu. Shout out to Hulu, okay? Right. I'm looking for sponsorships too. But anyways, I love that show. And it kind of gives us kind of just a sneak peek of how things could just go left real quick and how the government can just take control of bodies that aren't theirs. Yeah. So you guys be careful out there. If you don't have to travel out of the country, don't just, I don't even know what to do at this point.
Yeah, I just don't think that it's worth playing around with to take the chance.
Right.
We know how the government has handled certain things previously. My cousin was traveling with a kid, so I'm like, you just, the idea of getting separated.
Right.
Or what if, I just don't think that you want to play around with that. But, it's not because of a concern that anyone's going to get sick. Some people aren't concerned about getting sick and some people are. But if it's not about being concerned about getting sick, but it's just concern about the government being able to just do whatever they want at the end of the day, that to me is the more concerning thing.
I'm definitely afraid of that's a concern. I shouldn't say afraid. I feel like they're always trying to figure out a way just to incorporate Marshall's Law into our lives. What do they call them? What's it called where you have to be in at a certain time?
A curfew. Ooh,
so curfews. So you have curfews.
We're going to have partners. We're going to be wearing green hoods. I don't know.
I don't know if I look good in green. Can I have another color?
I'm not sure what that could turn into. So I'm just let's just play it cool. Like you said.
Yeah.
I feel like people are checking things off their bucket list, closing things down. And I don't know. But
I think they're making it bigger than what it really is, because if you look at the percentages based on population, the percentage of people who actually die from this disease is a very small percentage. If we knew the numbers when it came to the flu, we'd be losing our minds too, buying up whatever. So the fact that they're telling us how many people have been infected based on population, it is kind of low. And people with a weaker immune system are the ones that are
at a higher risk.
Right, at a higher risk in dying because people get the flu all the time. And if you look at the symptoms don't look that bad. Like fever.
I can handle that.
Fatigue.
Go to sleep.
Shortness of breath. Breathing treatment. You know, like it's not like I expected the symptoms to be like Ebola virus like.
Right. I mean, if you are in the high risk category, then I would say, take the extra precautions. What you need to do in order to avoid getting sick is the normal things you're supposed to do anyway.
Right.
So that's not, that's not crazy or anything. I don't know. I don't know. I've been limiting my consumption, but it's kind of challenging because I've never received so many emails from every single company on the sun with a statement, and I'm just like, okay, this is
it's a big. They're making it a bigger issue than I think it really is because people with weaker immune systems die from the flu also. So it's the same to me. And so I think because we're so exposed to the information, people are panicking. I went to the grocery store today to do regular people grocery store shopping, not buy all the canned goods. Like, why do you need 50 green beans? You don't even like green beans. So you're going to be in the house and mad that you got to eat all them green beans.
At some point, right? And
right.
If not now.
At some point. I guess you could just give them to the food drive when November comes around, I guess. But, it's crazy to see people panicking, people out here wearing gloves, people walking around with sanitizer. I already walk around with sanitizer before this happened. So it's so weird that people are like taking extra precaution to do the things they're supposed to do. Wash your hands.
Yeah, I'm like, if this is how I'm supposed to go out, I suppose. But I don't foresee, I don't foresee this being my way of going out. So I'm like, okay, well, I mean, the flights are pretty nice right now. So I'm like,
how far in advance can you book them?
I was about to book something for October.
Really?
But I was like, these are some nice little, I'm like, the airport's probably empty, so you can get through security fast.
Way faster and less contact with people.
Right.
I already don't touch anything because I don't like germs. I'm already a germaphobe. So, I don't think it's that bad.
Yeah, I think that if you're concerned, you take precaution and move on with your life. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
because it could be anywhere. It's not saying, when you get on the plane, you have a higher risk. No, this is going through your everyday life. We're all at risk. It could be on any surface.
Right.
And so like the schools kind of made me laugh because they shut down like all the after school programs and everything. And so I was supposed to have parent teacher conferences today for my kids. They canceled it. Yeah. I understand they don't want like the parents to come into the school, but those kids are the parents' children. So if someone's infected, those kids are going to carry it anyway. So I'm just trying to figure out where your logic is.
Yeah, I think it's just preemptive measures. I don't know, maybe to soothe people's response to it. You know what I mean? Like, well, if we do this, then people will feel less worried about it. But I think you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Like, if they keep the schools open, people are going to be mad. You close the schools, people are going to be mad.
Right.
So it's like, whatever, it's lose-lose.
And the economy is definitely taking a hit because now we're canceling festivals, we're canceling sports. These are people's jobs also. Right. So a lot of people are getting hit by this. Events are being canceled left and right, everything.
And we live in a tourist town, so you know, hospitality is one of the biggest contributors to income in this state. So I know that we particularly are taking a hit in that way.
Yeah.
Like immediately, I don't know what the effects will be out like as we recoup or as things change or whatever. But yeah, it's an interesting time. I can't think of a time where these things have been to this point before.
It's not on accident.
I'm like, this is a distraction.
It's such a distraction. Make sure y'all get out there and vote.
Listen.
Because I'm just saying.
That could be what makes people not want to go and vote, except for, I don't know.
People don't want to go outside. Make sure you get out there and vote. Don't let it happen to you. You know what I mean? And
the timing is quite interesting.
It is. It always is. And the industries being hit it's pretty interesting too. It's a domino effect, the way that this is going to happen. Grocery stores are popping though. Everybody got overtime today. When I went to the grocery store, every line was open. I was like, well, okay.
For the first time since
in
you
ever.
go to the grocery store, it's 2 people. There's
Right.
2 people on registers.
Yep.
Every
Every register was popping. I was like, yes. And so when I was in line, it wasn't a long line. I don't know why people don't pay attention. So like the first 3 lines were so long. And I'm like, well, let me go down here and see what's going on. It was like 2 people. I was like, y'all stupid. So I'm in line.
I heard them cough.
It was like, yeah, line 23, don't go down there.
Oh my gosh.
They be all right. So I'm in line and I got in and out. I got out pretty fast. But the lady was like, yesterday, the line was to the back of the store. I'm like, what the heck?
Well, what's today? Friday. Because Wednesday is when they said there was flight restrictions from Europe. So I feel like we knew that coronavirus was a thing for the last a couple of months, at least since January. But I feel like maybe that's why this week has been so long, that in this last week or so, things just keep on evolving and changing every second. Like your phone is buzzing off the chain. Like it's too much.
They're like, let's kick it up a notch and let's really get it going. Celebrities are being exposed. I just think it's just overkill. I want everybody to calm down, wash your hands. You're going to be okay.
You can only focus on what you have control of,
right.
Which is your own hygiene, you know?
Right. If you're worried about yourself, we might be okay. You're supposed to wipe down the basket when you get in. That's why they have the sanitary wipes right there. They're supposed to do that. And so people are just being extra. Like this lady was like, I left my gloves in the car. Oh my God. Girl, you're going to be all right. You're going to be fine.
Yeah.
Just take care of yourself. It's the same thing with the flu. If you take care of yourself, you'll be okay. If you already have a strong immune system, and let's say you do get the corona, you're going to be fine. Take care of yourself. It's not been any like young people who have died. It's always people like 60, 70, 80 years old. I just want everybody to calm down. That's what I would like.
Do what's within your control and move forward. Like life is still happening right now.
It has to. I just need them. What I'm looking forward to is to see how long they're going to draw it out. That is what's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I have no idea. I don't know. Like and then I think back to other things like Ebola and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like,
they didn't shut down schools over Ebola when it got here because someone had it in Texas.
Right. But I'm like, when it was over, it wasn't like there was, maybe I wasn't paying attention.
They didn't say anything. It just was like
fizzled.
Right. And that's kind of like, I'm like, they have it up here so high. People are going to be waiting for them to make a statement saying, oh,
right,
we have contained or whatever. Because when Ebola happened, even H1N1, it was here and then it was nothing.
We'll see. That's to be determined at this point. It'll be interesting. And then all of a sudden, all of us in November can be like, oh, yeah, that was weird.
Is the coronavirus still out? I mean, they did shut down. Like, my cousin called me and said her kid is out of school for like 2-3 weeks starting Monday. She's like, well, damn. Childcare, all these things that now we have to figure out. It's unfortunate what they're doing. We'll see how it goes.
We'll see.
We'll see if number 45 has it.
Oh, boy.
With his Coca-Cola drinking ass or whatever he drinks. His immune system weak. He don't take care of himself.
See, look, don't get me started. I keep my comments to myself because I don't want to offend anybody. And I'd be like, just in my own head, like, you're worried about coronavirus, but you still haven't changed anything else about your life. Like, what's within your control? Well, what you put in your body, like how you treat yourself, what, just helping your immune system to be in the highest functioning position that it can be. So you're worried about corona, but you're still doing X.
Right. You still passing the blunt. I'm just saying. Are we still passing the blunt out here?
If the world is ending, I think people are probably like, well.
Hey, if it is ending, why not? Oh, but people, I'm not. Yeah. I'm not smoking with you, dog. I saw you cough 3 times yesterday.
Oh my God. People are afraid to cough.
I know.
I was.
Did
Look,
you
I'm
see
not
Steph
worried.
Curry?
I'm holding my cough in like I'm.
Steph Curry had a hold in the cough. He was in a press conference and he was like, and he held that bitch in. He held that in he's like, I'm gonna cough in the locker room.
Oh my goodness!
That's how people are. You're really out here afraid to cough. That is terrible.
I mean, that leads to that leads to all the things that I do and deal with. Anxiety. You know, this is situational anxiety that people are dealing with. So
things you can't control. You're worried about something that's in the future or something you can't control. I almost lost my phone. Well, I did lose my phone in the grocery store.
Oh,
it was so much going on. It was so many people. I'm just trying to get some food for my kids today. Like, I see you guys with y'all's full baskets. I'm not even on that. I need some snacks and some food for these kids just in case next week they say Monday kids are out of school. Let me get my food. So I'm like shuffling and
maybe
trying to.
there should be specific lines like Corona scare.
Right. Are you afraid of the corona?
This is the line for you. If you just want to get like a couple of things here and there, this is the line for you.
I ain't even tripping. I just came to do regular. They were all out of rice milk. I'm like, come on, who drinks rice milk
on a regular basis
outside of me? It's like, damn, they taking everything.
Oh my goodness.
So suck. But yeah, I put my phone down. I was trying to pick something up. I put my phone down. I walk away and I'm like, where is my phone? Literally, I felt my whole body like my whole spirit was like, for real, Rachel, left my body. And I was just stuck like, okay, retrace your steps. Right. I found it. Thank God. Because I was like, that's everything. That's everything.
Hallelujah.
So let's get into getting to know you and what you do. So again, Jacent is a podcast host and a therapist, right? Mm-hmm. So tell us a little bit about what you do in therapy.
So I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. I actually do a couple of different things. I have a private practice, and there's actually 7 other women that are in the same office as I am. So there's up to 4 of us on any given day.
Okay.
We're licensed to be able to see individuals, couples, and families. So we can see anybody pretty much. But the funny thing is that the high majority of our clients happen to be individuals. I've personally focused on working with individual women of color. The majority of my caseload is Black women. And that's just who came and sought me out and found me. I wanted to work with couples. That's why I went to get that degree. And then I was like, y'all are interesting. So then my niche kind of found me at this point. And then I also train clinicians and teach a couple of undergraduate courses at UNLV. And I'm the on-site mental health professional at a local charter school.
Wow.
And then I do the podcast kind of as supplemental information and tips and tricks for anybody. So anyone that sees me on social media or, you know, I can't, as a therapist, friends and family are like, oh, well, I wish you could be my therapist. And I'm like, ooh. That's a conflict. And you probably don't actually want me to be your therapist. Yeah. But I can share information. You know, there's a lot of books, there's a lot of resources. And so the podcast was kind of born out of that. And I had a YouTube channel that I just never did anything with because I was like, dang, I got to get dressed. I got to have a play. Podcast is like, it's my voice. I can do it from my closet, you know? Right. That's much easier to start with and get consistent and at least get the information out. But it's actually been kind of fun. I'm enjoying it.
I love podcasting. It's amazing.
I never considered it. I didn't really ever even listen to podcasts really until about like a year or 2 ago. And then something kind of clicked, things aligned, and I watched a video and it was like, yeah, you know, as a business, because I'm, you know, a small business owner, you should have a short form media and long form media. And it was like YouTube and podcast. And I was like, a podcast? I could do a podcast. I never saw it. So I started in December. And so it's been about 3 months now. And it's been pretty cool. And the response has been pretty cool too.
Nice. So when you started counseling couples, what was the challenge that you saw?
Oh, Lord. You know, couples are interesting because they come in, everyone comes into therapy at the point where it's like, the straw has broken the camel's back. So it's challenging because they come in. I always use like medical weird analogies, but they come in, it's like we're in the emergency room. Right. Like your relationship is bleeding out, you know, and you want me to do miracles on your relationship.
Not gonna happen.
And it ain't just me in this room, okay? So everyone in the room has to be signed on and willing to do the work. I think that a lot of times couples come to counseling already kind of having made up their minds to a certain extent. And so sometimes couples are either just not ready, willing, or able to put in the work that you have to do. People want the easy way out. And I'm like, it's not easy. Like, you're going to have to make sacrifices. You're going to have to make changes. You're going to have to be vulnerable. And so it was a little bit challenging in that way. But then I started getting more clients that maybe were a better fit or, you know, something like that. But yeah, it was just either highly hostile or conflictual clients that you're like, do you guys want to just spend this hour yelling at each other? Like, that's fine. I mean, it's your life.
You still get paid anyways.
It's not productive.
Yeah. So, you know, I always tell people like everybody should go to counseling.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't even matter if nothing's going on with you. Like,
yep.
Especially like, so preventative care. Add it to like your list of preventative care when you're in a relationship. You might want to go. You don't have to go weekly, but you guys can do like a check-in like once a month, every 2 months, just so that you don't get to the point of we haven't been communicating in the last 10 years and now we want to go to counseling and get this thing figured out.
Yeah, I've literally had clients come in that were like, yeah, for the past 16 years. And I'm like, 16 years?
Yeah,
what the heck is going on here? I'm like, oh, at least it's not going to take another 16, but it's going to take some time. Like, honestly, I think the research says that you consistently couples coming in for 52 sessions. So that's a year.
Damn.
At least.
Every week.
Well, you have to think about how long does it take to create a habit and to create a lifestyle. And so it's not a joke. Now, if you do the preventative stuff, then you're at a much higher rate of success. But think about it. You can't even get a job at 7-Eleven without doing what first? Going to a training. You know what I mean? It's not like it should be necessarily mandated, but obviously our stigma around mental health and services is one that doesn't lend to people wanting to be involved in that process. But yeah, it's preventative. So you go to the doctor, however often, like annual, you go get your eyes checked, you go, you know, to the dentist. This is one of those things that your mental and emotional state can affect all those things.
Definitely.
Everything could be great in your life, but let your relationship be in a
everything sucks at that point. Everything sucks. I think that with going prior to there being an issue, you're in front of any issues and you can kind of catch it just like in medical, you can catch it before it gets too bad. And then you can figure out maybe in a more civil way, like, this isn't working, you know, versus getting to that point where you like hate that person.
Oh, yeah.
So I know that when whoever is my next husband or whoever that may be, I definitely want to like go to counseling before we don't like each other, before there's an issue that I'm like, we have to resolve it or whatever that may be. Go ahead of time.
I mean, there's premarital counseling, there's just couples counseling, and that's where you can go and be able to see like people's personalities are just different. Like we're not all built the same. So you're able to go and figure out, well, I'm typically like this, that person is like that. And then this is what your potential concerns will be. And how are you going to work through that stuff? Because there's a lot of conversations people don't have before they get into relationships.
That's true.
Or deep in a relationship. And then it's like you find stuff out when you're already in it. And then you're like mad because you're like, why didn't I know these things? Or,
right.
And so it's just a good way of being able to prepare for the shit hitting the fan, because it's going to. Someone's going to get sick. What if something crazy happens? You know, what if there's a huge loss in your family? You know, and how are you going to be able to, as a couple, overcome life's challenges together? And doing the preventative stuff definitely makes it so much easier than not.
I always say you never know someone until you go through a life situation, whether that be like losing a job, more responsibility, something happening within the household, within the family. Like you never know that person until you have to go through like a stressful situation with them. They will show their true colors at that point. But you don't want to get to that point and you might already be in too deep. So like you kind of have to learn how to communicate and get to know and ask the right questions and get to know that person better. And I think, you know, because you also do family counseling, we all don't communicate the same way. And just because we have children that came from us does not mean that our kids communicate the way that we do. So taking your kids to counseling, even when there's nothing wrong, just so that you guys can communicate in a more productive way is important also. Yeah,
that's the time. That's the best time actually to pick up and acquire a new skill. So you don't want to have to figure out how to do coping while you're in crisis. It's harder, you know, like you don't want to learn how to walk when you have a broken leg.
Right. That's true.
like that's counterintuitive. And so doing that stuff when there's nothing wrong makes it so that you can be logical in that process as opposed to emotional.
Right.
So once there's a crisis, everyone's emotions are high and we're making emotional decisions, saying things from that place. And it's different than if we said, hey, this is how we handle these types of situations. You can't call out every single thing that's ever going to come up.
Right.
But when we're pressed, this is what we do. This is what would be helpful for me. What would be helpful for you? And so that's the process. And that's how I try to change the stigma around mental health. So people will be more open to the idea, especially people that look like us,
right. Yeah.
And so I'm also trying to train clinicians because there needs to be more diversity among mental health professionals to serve the population that is diverse.
Right.
So it's kind of trying to hit it from all angles and connect with other people that are doing that so that we can, I don't know, help us to move forward. This is one of the things that we don't want to be distracted about. I was on Facebook and it was a post that said, coronavirus scare and everyone concerned about that. Let's not be distracted. Like, for Black people, mental health is a huge concern. Like, let's not forget that we still want to focus on the actual matters at hand and the things that are going to help us as a community to move forward.
I've definitely seen an increase over the last maybe 5 years in mental health professionals being more visible because they may have already been there, but maybe they weren't as visible. And the people who are open with saying, yes, I go to counseling. Yes, mental health is important. So I know that you said that you see majority Black women. What is your opinion when it comes to Black men and mental health?
I think Black men maybe are the most at risk and the least served, the most underserved. So thankfully, I have a colleague and a friend who just graduated with his PhD in marriage and family therapy yesterday. So I'm like, wonderful. I went to a Black men and mental health forum that he and another friend had put together. And it was interesting to just sit in the room with a whole bunch of Black men and hear about their experiences and for them to speak freely about what's going on with them. And so I think that they're definitely, I would love to see an insurgence. And therapy is not the only way for us to be well mentally. It's one of the ways, but it can be, we understand the world through language. So therapy is helpful because it helps us to use language to figure out what's getting in our way and how to get past it. So I really feel like there definitely needs to be an increase in men in mental health that are conducting the services for the population, as well as just, information being pushed out and people trying to do that work. Because I used to work at juvie, a lot of the things, I come from an attachment perspective. A lot of the things that lead to mental health concerns or issues come from childhood. So if we can as quickly as possible intervene in a kid's life to help them to know that they're supported and cared about, that they can be successful and have representations of people that are doing things that they may potentially want to do, then we'd be at a much higher rate of, progression. But because of the way that our system is set up and the way that, services are set up and stuff like that, I think that it really makes it challenging for young Black men or Black men in general. What about older Black men? Everybody.
They all need it.
All of them. And if Black women are with Black men, right, or seek to be, then it's kind of like everyone needs to be in that pool trying to do that work because, I'm with a Black man and I know the things that he's been through and I'm like, okay, well, we're going to go to therapy. Before we get married, we're going to therapy. So, I push him to you should start your own podcast. Yeah, you should do men's retreats or something like that,
I think that just having the support of us and letting them know that it's okay that they have these feelings, because it's always the judgment that people have towards Black men that they have to be this strong macho man, no emotion, and that is not human. So I met a Black therapist at Shades of Health event. Were you there?
I missed it.
It was a lot of speakers, but what I really appreciated was the panel of men that were there. And so I met a Black therapist, and it was really refreshing to see and his point of view and kind of where he stood. Hopefully he'll be on the show next week. I think, it was
I love
Keith.
Yeah. See, and then there's the people that I know in the community, who can I refer people to?
Yeah.
Because therapy by itself doesn't work magic. It has to be therapy with the right therapist.
That is facts.
It has to be a good fit.
I've had a few.
Listen, you have to. And if you go to the doctor and you don't like them or something's not right, you find another doctor. But there's already stigmas around mental health. So you go to a therapist and you're like, and then you think like, oh, well, therapy doesn't work. Because no. Don't give up on the process.
Right.
Just find the right person for you.
Yep. You probably know my therapist, but I really like her. And I don't even know how many therapists I've had, but over the last, I want to say maybe 6 years, I've seen a couple of them and I'm like, nope.
This ain't it.
Yeah, I might have 1 or 2 sessions and I'm like, no, I can't. I don't connect with them.
But kudos for continuing to look for somebody and then finding the right fit.
Right.
Because when I don't know how to explain it sometimes, but when you experience it, you're like, okay, this is it.
Yeah.
This is who I can do my work with.
Right. They're supportive. They vibe with you. And there's something about like when you speak with someone, it doesn't even matter if they are or not. But if you feel judged by that person, even though they say they're not, it might be their approach. It doesn't work with you. So I think it's so important that you understand, that people understand that they don't, just because you go to one and if you don't vibe with that person, that is not, don't stop.
Right.
Try somebody else. Just keep trying.
And that's when people call me, because I don't take every client that calls me. But when people call, I'm like, okay, what is it that you're looking for? That sort of thing. When I talk to them, I try to match them with someone that I think is a higher likelihood to be a good fit. And so at one time I even had someone that wanted to come in and see me and I was like, okay, I think this person would be better for you. Like I didn't even want them to come in. Not because I didn't want to see them, but I didn't think it was going to be a good fit. So then they came in and I'm like, okay, we went through the session. And I always say in the first session, therapy is the efficiency of it is highly based on the fit. And if at the end of the session you feel like it's not me, that's okay. So I try to release that pressure because it's not about me at the end of the day.
Right.
And I know a lot of therapists, so I can give you a referral. So at the end of that session, I could see that she was kind of uncomfortable. I could feel it. I knew she wasn't the good fit for me. And that's nothing about her and that's nothing about me. It's just the puzzle pieces, it ain't us together.
Right.
And so at the end of the session, I said, I really think that you should go see this person. And it was the original person that I thought. They went and I don't know if they saw that person, but I would assume that if they did, that would have been a much better experience for them than with me. Not because I was offensive or whatever, but it's just really important to have the right therapist.
Right. And everything ain't for everybody.
Listen.
So it's important to know that. But when it comes to your podcast, what types of topics are you talking about on your podcast?
So to me, the majority of the reason why people go to therapy is anxiety or depression. And so I talk a lot about those two things in different contexts. I also discuss like my lens or the way that I see therapy, because each therapist has their own perspective on what they believe the problem to be and what they believe the solution to be. And then just tips and guides. On Mondays, I have interviews with other people because it's called Jacent Gems. But I'm not the only one that has information to share. And I don't want it to be that like, okay, like I'm the end all be all or anything like that. So I'm like, okay, let's interview other people that are experts in their own fields so that we can hear a different perspective. So I need to have you on the show.
I would love to be. I would love to be. Just let me know when.
Yeah. So the podcast is for creatives that are looking for a way to remove roadblocks in their life. And I think that we're all creative at some level, but we may not see ourselves that way. And creativity is how you solve problems, because what we do is we have a problem, we try to use the same solution over and over again.
Right.
That's the definition of insanity. So in order to come up with new solutions, you have to get creative, to try something different, to see what happens. And so it's a little bit about creativity because I also have a performing arts background.
Okay.
And I feel like creatives also feel things maybe deeper in a different way. And so kind of just guiding and helping young creative individuals to understand themselves better and use their creativity as a tool for their success.
Yeah, creatives, our minds work in different ways. And I feel like, not saying anything to someone who maybe isn't considered creative, I feel like we feel more and we feel a little bit differently. Like things are a little bit more heightened.
Yeah.
So I love the idea because a lot of creatives do have mental health issues just because of the way that they think, and they might feels like there's always wheels spinning. Mm-hmm. So that's for me
a way to sort it out,
right?
And better understand it. So
yeah, I know when I go to counseling, it's like a release. And I had I think my counselor had like a speaking engagement, so I missed a week, and I was like, felt like I was holding my breath for like 2 weeks. Like I can't wait to see her because I got some things I need to say.
Right.
And let it out. And then you can kind of like go on with your week.
Mm-hmm. You can leave it all there in their office.
Right.
And then you can go into your week more energized and with more space, right? If we're all containers, we're collecting things every day. When you're at the grocery store and someone, is rude or gives you a side eye, you're collecting that. And if we don't have a way of draining and letting go of those things, then they just build up. Mm-hmm. And then that's why we feel tired or lethargic. That's why we don't want to be around anybody. That's why we get upset or go off. So therapy is, letting out any of that stuff that we've picked up.
Right.
And being able to go back into the world with some extra armor, maybe, you know what I mean? Or some tools until the next time. So
I've noticed, and I've been seeing articles, I don't know how things have been before because we have more access to information. We see more Black children committing suicide. Mm-hmm. So we see a lot of depression in kids. What is your take on that?
So I think that there's a couple of parts to that. I think that frustration tolerance over time is lower. Mm-hmm. So what I mean by that is if you think about your own life, the things that stressed you out a year, 5 years, 10 years ago might have had to have been bigger things than they are now, unless you're in therapy and things like that. Mm-hmm. Because over time, you just get more tired quicker. You get more frustrated easier. And so that combined with like generational trauma, all of the things that have occurred for the state of the Black family to be where it's at this point contribute to the higher rates or the more known, the more reported rates of suicide amongst young Black children. It's really sad, to understand that maybe our kids are feeling like there's nothing else, And so I think that it really comes down to reunifying as a community and reunifying as a collective people to put those things in place that help those children. So it's a little bit, there's a few factors that come into play working at juvie and stuff like that. Like our kids are also at a higher likelihood to be diagnosed with certain things, to be placed in certain categories or pools in school and other stereotypes, social media. So it's not that these things aren't happening in other communities, but I would say that we're more vulnerable because of what, as a people, we've already experienced. So we have less of a bandwidth, I'll say, to handle one more thing. Right. That's true. I mean, I remember seeing like articles that started with a Black child committed suicide. Black people. Oh, that's white people shit. Right. But see, that's a part of the problem. Right. Because what we're saying is, oh, well, our kids aren't dealing with things that are really... And they're actually, a lot of times, dealing with so much more. So why... And not even just kids, us in general. Yeah. And, the stigma between mental health and suicide and Black people saying, we don't kill ourselves. That's not true. There was a group of slaves that killed themselves so they would not be oppressed. So why do we say that? Why do we put so much pressure on that? And instead of like sweeping it under the rug saying we don't kill ourselves, why don't we take the time out to say, I see some change behavior in this person. What can I do to help? Right. Whatever the solution could be, it might be a multitude of things. But we have to acknowledge that there is an issue. Right. And if it's not mental health, okay, well, what does it need to be? Is it mentorship? Is it community-based programs? We also kind of have a crab in a barrel type of mentality sometimes. And so when there's separation, then we don't make space for being there for each other when things go on. So if your kid is struggling, but you don't want to talk to nobody about your kid struggling, well, now you're isolated as a family. Right. Trying to figure out what's going on with this person instead of leaning on each other. And that's what happens in our house stays in our house mentality also. Yeah, there's pros and cons to it. I get it. You want to just air your dirty laundry or whatever the case may be. But on the other hand, if things get to whatever point, your laundry gonna get aired. Like
regardless. So either you get the help now or somebody gonna be in your business later.
Right.
So I think that I think it's so important that we recognize that the things we say make a difference in people's lives, and certain things stick with kids. So you have to be careful with what you say. So I'm very observant of my children. I know when they've had a bad day before they even can say anything. So I need more parents to have that. Because I've seen parents say they didn't know, but then there's all these little things that they might have missed. Like, we just have to be very careful.
Yeah, I think we also have to pay attention to like the population of those kids, right? In these studies, what were their circumstances?
Right.
You know what I mean? Environmentally, in the home, there's a whole generation. I'm coming to the conclusion after really thinking about it, a whole generation of adults now who had parents that maybe had to deal with certain things in the, 70s, 80s? Whether it was because of drugs and things like that. So there's a whole generation of adults who had parents that maybe were on drugs or addicted in some type of way and were raising them at that time.
Right.
So now they're adults dealing with that, with the fallout of that stuff. It's not that their parents were the worst or what. Everyone's doing the best that they can.
Right.
But we have to acknowledge that those things all play a role. Preferably we would do preventative stuff to work with kids to help them to know as they grow up all the things they're supposed to know and feel. But we also, a lot of my clients are coming in and they're adults and we're still going back to the old stuff and helping them to resolve those things so that it doesn't get in their way, and that if they have kids, they can try to do something different.
Right.
And so there's so many layers to it that I think it's really challenging because of how many factors come into play.
Yeah, I think the first thing is just acknowledgement, because it's kind of hard to fix something that you aren't even aware of. So if we can just bring more awareness to certain behaviors, certain, things that could help, I think that is just the biggest thing, because people go through lives not knowing that they're abused. And it takes them maybe one conversation to really feel like, hey, I didn't know that's what that was. So if you don't know, how can you do better?
Yeah, it's just, oh man, it's rough. It's so rough. And we have to have these conversations, as tough as they may be. I'm sure parents don't want to have, talk about certain things with their kids. Maybe it's awkward. Maybe it's uncomfortable. You don't know where to start. But that's where therapy can be helpful. That's where having someone else that's trained can guide that conversation. Because when we don't acknowledge, right? Because you said acknowledgement is where we have to start. When we don't acknowledge, we're automatically invalidating someone's experience.
Right.
We're invalidating maybe their identity and who they are. And what does that do to a person?
Breaks them down, messes with their confidence, makes them feel not worthy, not enough, not heard. All those things contribute to someone saying, I don't want to be here anymore.
Exactly.
So that's that acknowledgement first. I want to touch on, because you said that you have an aunt in Uganda. So you are
from Uganda, yeah.
From Uganda. Were you born there? Were you born here?
I was born in Uganda, and then I was raised here in the States.
Okay.
So when I was a baby, that we immigrated this way.
So when it comes to mental health and, your family from Uganda, how are African people and people from Uganda receiving of mental health?
Girl. I grew up in an African home. So when I was going to college and I was like, okay, I want to do music. They're like, what? So I was like, okay, I'll do psychology. And they're like, what? I'm like, okay, I'm clear. I'm going to do what I want to do. And you guys are going to see that I will be just fine. But, generally it's not really acknowledged or welcomed or really much of a thing, at least in Uganda. I can't speak for the whole continent because there's plenty of countries,
right?
But I would say that the stigma is that it's pretty similar to how we feel about it, if not, no, I don't know if I want to say if not more, but it's just not a thing. It's not really highly suggested or utilized or recommended. Now they have like counselors because AIDS is huge or whatever, so there's people that when you get AIDS there's a counselor for that, but just general like mental health and things like that, not really. So that's a part of what me and my cousin were going to do, is work around global health as well as mental health. Wow,
that's amazing. So the people that are in Uganda, I don't know about the country, but in some of these in some of these African countries, there's a lot of things that happen that contribute to, you know, someone's mental health being destroyed, watching children seeing certain things growing up, just like here in the States. And so I would, you know, you going out there, I think that you saw that there is a need for it.
Definitely. I mean, just like you said, everyone could benefit from some additional support or a non-judgmental ear. And definitely for those who may see a lot of different things in different countries, where America, we kind of have it a little cushy, to be honest.
Yeah.
We live kind of like a cushy life. So, but even still, there's a lot of traumas here and things that people see next level in other countries. And so I don't want to say that people that have those things occur are more resilient, but I think it's like, if it's the norm, then they don't know anything outside the norm.
Right. That's just life.
That's just life. So you see whatever you see and you're like, that's life.
Yeah.
But there might also be a more of a disregard for sensitivity. They might be desensitized to certain things that we would be like, oh my goodness.
Right.
They're like, it's Tuesday.
Every day. Happens every day. I think desensitization is a big deal when it comes to third world countries and really anywhere outside the U.S.
Yeah.
Because the government kind of hides a lot of things here that happen.
And we act like we don't have like our own, we make fun of like South or North Korea and stuff like that for them being really closed off. But like, how much do people here actually know about what happens outside of here?
Nothing. They keep it all in the house. That's America. We keep our business in our house.
Right.
That's what America does. And so that's why a lot of people kind of look from the outside to America. You know, there's a lot of things that are better and, you know, maybe opportunities may be more, less violence on the forefront.
Oh my goodness. We were in Trinidad and Tobago and we were watching the TV was on. I don't know. I can't actually watch it because I don't know what they were saying, but the news came on or something like that. And it's like, they just showed a body on TV.
Yeah.
I was like, what is happening here?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I was like, okay, can we turn this off? Because I am not ready. And so we do have much more layers of protection for us here, being that we have like the FCC and these different protocols and procedures about what people can post and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, because in other places, I don't
it's just out there. Because you can walk out your house and see that same body.
Right.
So it's kind of like,
it's rough.
Yeah. When it comes to, so growing up here, do you see maybe a difference in the family structure?
So being that I was born there and grew up here, I'm first generation, and there's also something called like being a third culture kid. So I grew up in America, but in a Ugandan household. So I don't really fit in here and I don't really fit in there. So seeing families having different ways of being, it is quite different because I know that in Uganda, there's traditions and rituals and it's very laid out, like how you interact, how you talk to people. There's protocols, literally. And so that was very different than here where maybe each family has their own way of doing things. Some people's families, you know, eat dinner together. I grew up in Vegas near Henderson. So there's a high population of LDS families. And so I knew that they would always have like a family night every week. I was like, that's a part of their practice was to make sure that they were really family oriented and stuff like that. There's other families that, you know, they split off for dinner and they don't really talk to each other about certain things or whatever. So it was like being the observer of like, maybe that's how I became a therapist. I'm just seeing all these different things and how people do stuff differently. And I'm like, that's interesting. Like, they do it like this and this culture does it like that. So there's definitely some differences. Yeah,
I think with the Black American family, we don't have that cultural, those rituals, those protocol. We don't really have that. Every family has like their own little thing that they've adopted. Some things may be similar, but a lot of things may be a little different. So I think that's like when I see African families, I love to see the traditions, the rituals, what they do on a day-to-day basis as a family, and what their expectations are of each other. And I'm like, we don't really have that.
Yeah, I think that that's what, you know, was one of the products of obviously how Africans came to be in America, was losing that piece. And that was all strategic, right? And planned on purpose. And so we're still dealing with the fallout of the dismantling of the Black family.
Oh, yeah. Every day. You know, Willie Lynch in that book was supposed to be 300 years. And it's literally replaying over and over. And what I am appreciating and seeing is that I'm seeing more Black people just adopt the practices of whatever country they, you know, kind of navigate to in Africa. But what is sad and what is kind of hurtful is we don't know which one we belong to.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing is that people are pretty welcoming. So there are some things that are just general, kind of like, I'm from Uganda and other people are from, let's say, Ghana. And there's some things that are just general as far as we can see eye to eye on those things. But then the little intricate stuff gets a little bit different. So I do have a couple of friends that had gone to Ghana for work, and, you know, they were given citizenship, and this was a couple years back before the year of return, and an apology for, you know, the part of Africans in the slave trade and stuff like that. And so I think that there's also, apart from African Americans in the States, there's also been the division of Africans and African Americans and not getting along and stuff. I almost got beat up.
Really?
At the club, after the club.
By some American Black girls?
This is real life. I almost got beat up waiting for my car after the club because they could tell that I was not American Black, whatever you want to call it. American, I don't know. They could tell I was different.
And so they wanted to beat you up because...
Yeah.
Oh, I've never...
And to me, I'm like, this is why. I can see it all happening because I can see the system. And I'm like, this is crazy. This is the way that it is. You know, I'm like, wow, somebody's trying to jump me at the club. Let me get in my car. Like,
that's crazy.
I was like, I can't lose my license. Jesus, I can't go to jail.
Right. You don't need that problem.
Right. I was like, I'm not trying to fight anybody.
That's crazy. I would love to see, and, you know, here I do kind of see the cultures coming together, and Black people being more open to what our ancestors did. You know, if our part of our Blackness came from Africa, or whether you were indigenous to the United States or whatever, but just being able to pick up and be able to basically break that division. I think is so important.
And then on the other side, Africans also need to do their part, because I think, I don't know, Africans are going to be mad at me for saying this, but like Africans are they're like uppity, a little bit bougie, you know, that sort of thing, or at least come off that way. And so both sides kind of being able to come to the table and have those conversations. I'm actually a part of, what is it called? African Diaspora of Las Vegas.
Okay, they do the networking events?
Every month, yeah. And now they're trying to expand and do other things because it's a new organization. It's not even a year old yet. But there was a representative from, I don't know what organization it was, but they had Nevada Partners. Is it tomorrow? It must be tomorrow. A Nevada Partners meeting tomorrow.
The summit?
I think so.
I don't even know if that's still happening.
Probably not. You know. But last Saturday it was.
Yeah.
Last Saturday she came and was like, hey, like we want someone or some people to be able to come and have a conversation and bridge that gap. Because there's so many of us. If we could just get together, if we could just unify, like the things that we could do, the things that we have done, you know?
Right.
And so it's just all about getting together, putting our mind and our skills together to help us get back on top.
Yeah. We need more unity because, for example, the outside people don't have any problem coming to support and be involved in our stuff. The Urban Chamber of Commerce isn't all Black. That's a problem for me. Why not?
Yeah.
There's enough bodies out there where we can support ourselves, because when you go to the Asian Chamber of Commerce, you don't see nobody else. I'm just saying. So why can't we support ourselves in something like that?
We're still working through it. It was deep. What was done was deep to the point that we are still dealing with it today. Because that's why other communities can get together. One of the reasons why the other communities can preserve their culture and things like that, they didn't have to deal with some of the stuff that us as a people had to deal with.
Right.
But we need to get it together.
I think that we need to stop inviting people to the cookout. Only Black people are invited to the cookout. If you don't look like us, you can't come. And if they're offended, they're just offended.
Yep.
They don't have to be involved. Like, they feel entitled to our culture and to us. And that's the problem. Just like with the honeypot situation. You don't got to be involved.
And we're friendly, though. You know, we love to.
Some of us. Not me, because who is that? That's my question. Who is that? That's exactly what I'm asked. What are they doing here? Are we getting audited? What's happening? That would be my question. Why are you here? This is not for you. Everything's not for you. You know what I mean?
The whole world is for you already.
Right.
Like,
can we have our little cookout by ourselves?
I feel you. We need to get it together.
Yeah.
We need to get it together.
Stop being so open to, if we can't, if Black Americans and Africans have this, why are we letting these outside people, the white people, in so easily?
You know, the crazy thing is that, because me and my cousin, we go back and we do stuff. But the crazy thing is that, like, this whole white savior situation is very real. To the point that we're from Uganda, and we don't get as much respect in some way, shape, or form as maybe a white person does.
That's a problem. That's a huge problem.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I don't like that.
It's colonialism is to Africa what slavery is to the U.S.
Right.
So it's like the colonialism done messed up Africans.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And all they're going to do is take and take. Even the Asians coming,
Yep.
the Chinese people, they're
Buying everything
worst.
up.
Yes. It's really bad. I hate to see it. But this episode was about mental health. We can come back and talk about colonialism because that's a whole thing right there. But first, let everybody know where they can find you, where they can listen to your podcast.
I'm most active on Instagram, and my Instagram is Just Call Me Jay. That's JUSCALLME_J. And all of my links are on there to my website, my podcast, which is Jacent Gems, which can be found wherever you listen to podcasts. Yeah. So let's connect. Let's be friends.
Yeah, let's see. We were Facebook or Instagram friends for a little bit, and I was like, "Oh, she's cool. I like her little style. I like what she's got going on." And then we met at Jazzy Chick, and I was like, "Oh, that face looks familiar." So thank you for agreeing to come on the show. It was actually, what was it? Something Jazzy Chick was doing.
I think it was their. Was it another
It was like
grand opening?
No, it was like a beauty, something about
House of Beauty.
Day of Beauty.
Yes.
I forget the name of the, but yeah, it was promoted by Go Urban. So shout out Go Urban.
Okay.
That's where we met. And it was, you had a little table set up. So it was one of those little vendor type days. It was like a full day. But definitely thank you for agreeing to come on the show and taking the time out after you worked and driving all this way to the studio. So I really do appreciate that.
Thank you. I'm glad we were able to connect in person. It's fun seeing friends online and then actually meeting up in person. And, hey.
It's like my favorite thing. I'm like, I know you. I met this guy, like we follow each other. And so I saw him out. I was like, I just called out his IG name. Like, that's your name. That's it. So it's always cool to see that. But
the internet can be used for good.
It can. It definitely can. And then you can see these people in real life one day. And that's pretty cool too. So again, thank you. Make sure you guys follow her. Make sure you tune in every Thursday to Melanin Blvd. And don't forget to tell your friends, to tell their friends, and maybe we could be friends, to tune in every Thursday. All right, guys. Bye.